Welcome to Unfiltered with Mike DeZoniers on WILI 1400 AM and 95.3 FM.
You'll get it.
And I'll get it. I will get there someday. Today's our first show, and to start off, we have two awesome guests in the studio today. We have Reddy with us.
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for having me on your first episode. I'm really looking forward to joining you here, and I've brought some unfiltered content for your listeners.
Awesome. And we also have George Austin with us.
What's going on? What's going on, Mike? I'm honored to be on your inaugural broadcast, and we could not get past the censors if I were to go unfiltered. So I'm going to say filtered. I'm going to say filtered.
All right, we're going to keep it clean.
All right. Yeah, so, when we started off, this is basically going to be a show on local issues, and, both of you guys are probably going to be the most dynamic parts of local politics here coming up, and can make the most positive change for what's going on.
I think that's a really good thing, because that is one of the things that I really want to bring to campaigns for Republicans in Connecticut is the positive outlook that we can have to make productive change in the state legislature. We've talked about some of these very basic issues on my show, and I'm going to share them on here with your listeners also. Affordability, safety and security in our state. These are things, our Eversource bills, these are things that we can change legislatively. We need to have this positive outlook to say that, yes, this can be done. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, legislatively, and that's a big thing in town, in the entire state. What's your opinions on that, George?
Well, it's an even bigger problem in D.C. I'll tell you that right now. Everyone's trying to work on it, but there's just a lot. I understand it can be daunting because there's so much stuff that you have to cover. There's so many issues that, man, we brought up Eversource already right at the top, huh?
I love it. That's my jam.
Yeah, I know. But so that's one of those things that we have to legislate our way out of it because we legislated our way into it, right? So typically my point of view, for example, when I'm going around, people ask me about the housing bill, they ask me about Eversource, they say, what can you do? I'm like, well, I'm going to be honest with you. I am not a fan of expanding the size of the federal government. So from D.C., I would prefer not to do anything, which does not sound good. It's not a very good sales pitch. However, to imply that I can, to imply that I would or I can, inherently means that I would have to be in favor of expanding the breadth and the scope of the federal government. Sure. So that's no good. Right. And so to bring it back to Eversource, for example, we are, like I said, we legislated our way into it. There's a big component, as I said, about shooting ourselves in the foot. The big component is how we have structured the purchase of what are known as power units. So for just a very, very, very brief and very down and dirty synopsis of it, Mass buys our locally produced power units because they are even more green crazy. Nuts green crazy. Oh, you get what I'm saying. Right. So they can but won't produce their own power, so they buy ours. We then in turn must have to, and because we're nuts, we have to sell to them our local units. Then we have to go out and purchase them in the market, in the marketplace, and we've tied both arms behind our backs in terms of what we can buy and what we are deciding to buy, thanks to PURA and the ruling party in the state, is to purchase the most expensive units as possible under the guise and under the in accordance with the green ideology that has usurped common sense in society at large.
That is great. And I will add to that, Mike and George. November 2025. I have an article. I actually brought it with me right here. This is written by an energy policy analyst named Lisa Lenois. The title is Massachusetts Electricity Costs, the Real Source of the Problem, and the subtitle is This is a Data-Driven Explanation for Ratepayers and Legislators. And the key takeaway from this is that the renewable portfolio standards that these states, these blue states specifically, are initiating, requiring and mandating renewable sources. We can all agree this is what we want. We want to go in that direction, but the market has to adjust to it, and it can't be mandated by the state. And in every one of these blue states, the single driver that has elevated electricity costs to ratepayers over the past decade are these renewable portfolio standards that they're setting. In Connecticut, for example, one of our next kind of our time frames that we're looking to complete certain portions of this standard and the renewable greenhouse gas initiatives for New England is going to be 2030. To be able to achieve some of these standards is going to cost us billions of dollars, millions of new solar panels, hundreds of new offshore wind programs. Who's footing that bill?
Right.
The ratepayers and the taxpayers.
And you know, a lot of it, when you do the research on it, a lot of these solar panels and in the windmills, they really don't produce the kind of power we need. And it seems like we would be a lot better off going with other sources of energy.
So my question is, if we think diversity is a strength in terms of society at large, if we think diversity is our strength when it comes to our portfolios, our investment portfolios, why would we not want a diverse energy supply? For example, we can go to traditional sources, coal, oil and gas. When our peak load is above average, when we are at night, when there is no wind, when it is too cold, so on and so forth. That's one aspect. And another aspect is why do we continue to have this debate under this framework? For example, when we're talking about what can be done with solar, what can be done with wind, what can be done with renewables, air quotes, and I say that because guess what? Ethanol is a renewable source of fuel. Biodiesel is a renewable source of fuel. But anyways, I digress. Why do we not reframe the debate, or at least try to modify it? If we really want to be green, then someone riddle me this: with what materials are these things being manufactured? What are the processes under which these things are being manufactured? From how far away are they being manufactured? For example, in construction, there's a methodology called LEED, LEED. I know the acronym well. Don't remember what it stands for, but it is definitely environmental in nature. You have different ratings: gold, LEED certified, LEED silver, LEED gold, LEED platinum. And there is a big, complicated formula involved, but it essentially refers to carbon. It incorporates things like carbon footprint, but not only. But for example, not what is at face value green about a project, but how far it has to come from. So, say for example, you could have something that's radioactive but is locally sourced, will be looked more favorably upon than a windmill and a solar panel that's manufactured on Mars, and we got to get it over here. I'm exaggerating greatly, but the point is there's a lot of components all of the components are factored in to different components in the methodology, insofar as rating. And so when we're talking about green stuff, I really want to have it. Or for example, why are we deforesting in order to put solar panels on land? Why? I mean, that's insane. They belong on parking garages, on roofs, especially of commercial properties. How about on top of every single new school? Every single new school that has a membrane roof, cover it in solar panels. Period. If the state wants to be green, it should put its money where its mouth is. How about that?
Right.
The other thing I want to see the state do is I want to see transparency in what these renewable portfolio standards are actually doing in the state. We need to see published, standardized annual cost and performance reports across all of these major electrical programs.
Right.
Yeah,
Step one.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to
it's
see where
such a
this money's
no-brainer.
going.
I don't know what to say to that.
I know, and that's not what's being done. Massachusetts is the same way. Rhode Island is the same way. There's little transparency.
Because it's not about being green. It's about kowtowing and bending knee to this ideology. And just wrap up something I'd love to say, and I haven't had a chance to say it ever since we met. It's just replacing one oligopoly with another. So people are not in favor of the Ford, Rockefeller, Firestone fortune. So they want to create a new, they want to transfer that wealth. And regardless of where you look at where you are in terms of monopolies and generations and empires and dynasties and such, at the very least, them's Americans. At the very least, the green, if one were to just give way to the green wave, as it were, that wealth is going overseas to the other side of the prime meridian to another hemisphere. That's no bueno.
And I'll tell you another cost that a lot of people are not factoring into this. Once these solar panels, wind turbines, and everything are decommissioned, where
landfill, yeah.
Whose landfill is that going to? Not ours. Right. We're going to be paying Canada to take that and bury it back in a mine somewhere in, the Yukon.
Right. Like all the recyclables that were going by ship over to China.
Then dumped in the ocean.
Yeah. Anyways,
go ahead, Mike.
There you go.
we gotta let Mike get a word in edgewise.
No, okay. So that was one of the first issues we talked about. And it all comes down to legislature and who we're putting in office and why, these things keep happening. They keep happening. There's no changes. We've got the same thing happening on a local level. We have issues going on in towns with our police departments all over. It's almost like humanity is going away. And there's no way for our police departments to police it. We put ordinances in. I know at our last meeting they tried to do new ordinances on off-road vehicles, on street takeovers, things like this. But yet, when you turn around and you get the police there, the police can't do anything. And it's not only vehicles. It's with other things. We've got assaults. We've got all these things that are blowing up in our area, and the police are not able to do anything.
Okay, so I said this 2 years ago in a debate. Crime is not down in Connecticut. The prosecution of crime is down in Connecticut.
Or maybe the reporting.
That's what we're saying. Yes, that too. That also. But I can't blame the police officers in this because it is police accountability laws that are the basis for kind of this hampering of the abilities. And we have something that I mentioned to you yesterday. I think we're going to talk about it later on in the show if we have time.
Yep.
But talking about this off-road vehicle ordinance that's in town, I cannot tell you how many times in the summer I've come through town or been in Rec Park watching the softball leagues, and young guys are riding off-road vehicles, unregistered, in and out of that crowded parking lot, wheelies down the driveway.
Right.
I love motorcycles and dirt bikes. I've ridden motorcycles for decades. I understand how...
Decades?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How old are you, dude?
He's pretty old.
Oh, man. Okay. Anyway, sorry to cut in.
But I understand, I enjoy it also. And I don't want to squash anybody's enjoyment of something that they do. But clearly, there has to be a safe place for these people to ride off-road vehicles like this. The streets are not that.
No.
We've seen what's happened in circumstances in Willimantic where people on these unregistered off-road vehicles have been chased by the police, and I think that has influenced current policy in town regarding that.
Right, and I agree with it. You don't want to start chasing these bikes or ATVs around, but there's got to be some sort of way of tracking them down. We know where they are. Most of us that live in town know where they all congregate, know what's going on. So, there's got to be something.
Now, I know that there's also a large group of people that on the weekends will come into the Wyndham area because of some of our sand pits and gravel pits in the area. that are actually not people who simply just ride around town and head to those areas. I mean, this area is a draw for people to ride off-road vehicles, just like areas of Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are. Connecticut just doesn't have that type of DEEP structure where they allow for recreational vehicle registration and then also usage on certain areas within Connecticut that are state-owned land.
Right. Okay, we've got a caller.
Hello.
Hello.
How we doing, gentlemen?
Doing great. How are you?
All right. Just like to comment on these ordinances, and you just happen to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, ATV and dirt bikes.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, it is becoming a problem, but we still have a lot of responsible riders who ride the dirt bikes and the ATVs and use the trails. And unfortunately, those are the ones right now that are paying the price for the ones that don't follow the laws and don't follow the rules.
No, I agree with you. Yep.
Okay, so if you go anywhere up north, there are plenty of places to ride. There are plenty of programs that they have where the landowners are able to get together and provide places to provide. They have clubs that clean up after the trails and take care of the place. Unfortunately, Connecticut has nothing like that. We have, I think, 2 places in the state that you can ride.
Right, and I had mentioned that actually just before we picked you up on the phone call here, that this is something that makes Connecticut very different from the other New England states, as you alluded to. In the wintertime, people from all over the East Coast go to New England for the snowmobile trails. Those are accessible in the summertime with off-road vehicles that are properly registered. People are paying taxes and registration fees on these vehicles, which helps to offset the cost and also is offsetting the ability for instance, landowners to say, hey, listen, I'll give you 6 acres of my 300. You can ride across to connect, a trail system, and you give me a little bit of a tax break. So, I mean, there is ways that we can help people who are the responsible riders and the people who want to participate in this sport without bringing this into the public streets where it poses a danger to people that are paying registrations and insurance to be able to use the streets to go to work and go to pick their kids up from school and activities. And it just poses an unnecessary risk when you have people that are performing some of these dangerous activities while riding unregistered vehicles on the streets. That's the concern that I think the majority of people have.
Right.
Well, correct. But there, I'd almost like to quiz the public because we have plenty of trails that are road legal. And people don't know the difference between a road legal motocross bike and one that's not. So education is going to be one thing. And then second of all, this is, you got to ask yourself, why would you buy something and register it if you have nowhere to ride it? And the minute you do take it out, you're already kind of committing, not a crime, but you're kind of, you register this, You pay the taxes and everything, but Connecticut doesn't have a place for you to ride.
Correct.
So the minute you go out in the trail system, and I've grown up with dirt bikes my whole life, and let me tell you, Wyndham right here, Wyndham County, we have tons and tons of trails that have been there since I was a kid and before my time, other people drove on it.
Yep.
And these are people that are trying to do the right thing, doing the good things. And I agree with that part. But as far as the ordinances that these, we can make all the ordinances we want. But if we don't enforce them, they're no good.
Bingo.
Yep. Exactly. And,
okay.
And the biggest thing with the ordinances and everything else that goes on is the legislators we have currently in office don't seem to get the big picture. They tie the hands of the police, but yet they don't provide, like you say, places where you can ride to make it legal so these people won't be riding on the streets. And normally it is the people that follow the rules that do suffer the brunt of, of the consequences.
For a few people.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment debate.
Yeah, so we have an ordinance in town now where they're going after the business owners. If somebody happens to be fueling up a dirt bike, you can go after the business owner. That totally blows my mind. How are we going to go after a business owner when they, in all reality, they're selling a product just like the same person who bought the dirt bike? They bought a product.
Yeah, I agree that
we're going after business owners. And
I think that's probably one of the worst ordinances we have. I look at that and I wish there was a way to change that. I'm not sure how anybody thought that was a good idea.
And,
go ahead.
Go ahead. And also, too, we so I didn't get to make the meeting, but they had a meeting where now they want to, to me, it's more of a political show. They want to impound, if they catch you, they want to impound this, and they want to crush it. Why? We're already using tax dollars to enforce this, right? So why would we take let's say that, we confiscated so and so and so. We should auction that off, and that money should go back to the program to fund that program to make it better. Not put on a show on TV or on the paper that we crush so many dirt bikes. That does nothing for the program. As a matter of fact, it keeps costing us, the taxpayer, more money.
Smart guy.
Exactly.
We can take this money.
And that's what we're talking about is a lot of the things that are done are just that. They're just for political show. I'm really surprised this didn't come up right before the election, because
I'm not.
Everything they do it seems like it is a show, and the people that really mattered didn't show up at that meeting. Your state rep never showed up. Your state senator never showed up. And these are the people that can make the changes in Hartford that we need. These are the things that need to be done. But there wasn't enough flash around it. There wasn't enough glamour, so they didn't show up.
I do want to mention one thing about your idea with the auctions, and while I like that idea and I think that it's very useful, I know that from other cities within Connecticut, the issues that they've had is that a number of the dirt bikes and ATVs that they've been seizing are actually vehicles that have been stolen from either other areas of Connecticut or even other states around New England. And now you have a situation where these impounded vehicles could take 6 months or a year for a police officer to actually track down who the actual legitimate owner might be for something that might still be financed by a company. So there is some
back to the rightful owner.
Yeah, and there are some complicating factors to do that. I like that idea though, and I think that's something that it can be looked at. But I know that is one of the issues that is concerning it with like a lot of these street takeovers and stuff. A significant portion of these dirt bikes and ATVs have been stolen from other areas around New England.
Right.
And you brought up my next subject. We have an ordinance for a street takeover. I lived in Wyndham my whole life, and I'm yet to see this takeover happen here in Willimantic or in Wyndham. Maybe that's the new wording, is a street takeover. But what happened in the days when people used to hang out, whether it was a McDonald's or hang out somewhere and everybody got together and had a good time, not necessarily cause a disturbance or violence, but now it just, with these ordinances, I could have a group of 10 people hanging out that are into their cars, and we can, depending on who is the person that calls it in or how it's phoned in or the officer that shows up, this could be a street takeover. And it's, you're in, at the same time where I think it's an overstep, and I mean, it just seems like Connecticut, little by little, we're outlawing fun, and it's,
You are absolutely correct, but it all comes down to the fact that Connecticut over mandates every single aspect of your life. And that's what needs to change. Yep. Can we at least agree on that?
Yes, definitely, gentlemen. Keep up the good work. And
thank you, sir. Thank you for your phone call.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
Welcome back to Unfiltered with Mike DeZoniers here at WILI 1400 AM and 95.3 FM. Today in studio, we've got Chris Reddy and George Austin.
Yo.
So You asked me to come in and bring some unfiltered content to this
Yes.
first episode here, and I'm going to get right into it right now. This is going to be something that we're going to start to talk about on my show on Thursdays. But I want to make sure that if anybody is interested in this, tomorrow at the state capitol, specifically the legislative office building, there's going to be a press conference. It will be open to the public. And you can come down and hear what is being discussed about Public Act P490. This is something that Connecticut has had since the early 60s. 1963, I believe, it was initially instituted. And I did bring a copy of this. This is through the Department of Agriculture. And specifically, PA 490, Public Act 490, discusses recommended land use values and best practices for farmland in Connecticut. And while this all sounds fantastic, providing never-ending farmlands that's in close proximity to our urban centers to provide local food sources. This all sounds great. And for years, certain aspects of this land use value assessment that the Department of Agriculture does every 5 years, a reassessment every 5 years, looks at the usable land that a farmer owns, designates it into several different categories that can then be taxed based on their land use on that farm. Some of these things that they break down are different types of tillable lands graded A through E.
Right.
Based on soil content. Some of it is open pasture. Some of it is swamp and ledge and unusable portions. What has happened here as of October 1st, 2025, when this new reassessment value came out for the 5-year mark, was that many farms, particularly in the river valley of the Connecticut River, so from Enfield all the way down to Long Island as you follow through your area, George, Windsor Locks, South Windsor, Cromwell, all the way south along the Connecticut River, those were hit particularly hard. And in the case of the prime tillable A land for farming, the tax assessment just in that area, they now differentiated because of the river valley, is like $700 per farm unit per year. Huge increase. The other really, really significant increase that we're fighting here is that the state, and listen to what this sounds like to you, where they had set a value on unusable wetlands as part of your farm and set a certain rate that unusable portion of your farm should be assessed at, that number has gone up significantly. You're now looking at a piece of land that the state says we are going to tax you more on, but at the same time, we're going to say you can't do anything with this.
Right.
Right?
Sounds like government.
So, yeah.
It also sounds like another entity, a little bit more familial than governmental, but it sounds to me like mafia extortion. Mm-hmm. Like,
right.
We've had an agreement all along, and I'm just going to say this. I'm a mafioso. I go to the farmer and I say, "Hey, look we run this neighborhood now. We're going to take your money." We come back a few years later, like October of 2025, and we say, I know we've had this agreement. We gave you a little bit of a break because that back corner of your farm where we bury the bodies, you let us use, so we gave you a break. We're going to start to charge you now on that. 2 points. Right? And what happens if you can't pay?
Take it.
Yes, and that is absolutely something that I want to bring up, which is what should infuriate people about this and why we're having this rally here tomorrow. And it's because the response when farmers saw their tax bills last year based on this reassessment value was astronomical. First, the Department of Agriculture revised those rates. And then they came out with a statement. Part of this statement really said that the change that they realized that there was a need for change, but what they were really going to look at is improving future processes of this reassessment valuation. Reading through the tea leaves, what that says to me is we're going to push this off past the 2026 election cycle.
Because why not?
Sure.
Yeah. Why would you want to bring this up this close to a midterm election? Right? Then this is the real kicker. in that same statement from the Department of Agriculture, where they said they're going to look at improving the future processes where they evaluate all this different land usage for farms, they come out and they say, we have heard from a number of farmers regarding their concerns with the initial Public Act 490 recommended land use values, and this is the kicker, and the processes undertaken by developers to solicit and analyze that data. Why would a private equity firm or a billionaire developer be interested in knowing who is about to have a massive increase in the taxes on their farm?
Right.
Because it's an investment opportunity.
It does. It looks like
This is the state choking out our farms to make way for affordable housing.
Yep.
You know, I left my tinfoil hat in the car, so I apologize for not being able to signal what's about to come. But I don't know. I just hope it's not. I hope it's that. I hope that's the reason, and the real motive is not more sinister. That
I'm just making some very simple correlations here.
That's no good, man. I mean,
this is our food sources. This is our food.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If you that's kind of why farm. You know, I know, like in Suffield, all right, we have a very productive, a very well-funded, a very well-attended ag sci program. Mm-hmm. That's not, we are by far the exception as opposed to the rule. Mm-hmm. There's an ag sci program at UConn. That is by far the exception as opposed to the rule. Mm-hmm. And last I checked, everyone everywhere has got to eat. And last I checked, in order to eat, you got to grow some food. Mm-hmm. And so last I checked, it would make sense for those who need to eat, en masse anyways, to know something about gardening, to know how to grow and produce said food. Mm-hmm.
And to do it without overburdening the people who are doing the producing of the food.
Yeah, sure.
And that's
absolutely.
where we're getting to.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's admit it. Most of the farms in this area, they're not getting rich. They are on a small profit margin each year, and a lot of that is dependent on not only weather conditions, but also their ability to prevent something devastating like a disease coming through and ravaging their crops. Then all of a sudden you're looking for your entire year to be supplemented by the federal government because of losses. And
insurance ain't going to help you. Yeah. But I mean, but if you can't, I guess what I was just trying to allude to is if you can't afford the taxes, let alone trying to actually turn a profit, but if farms can't afford their own taxes, there are equity firms who can. And, they're prospecting, I guess. And it's so safe because how else are you going to grow the damn food?
The vultures are circling around those farms.
Exactly. I mean, and that's, unfortunately, that's the way politics is being run in Connecticut right now. It seems like a chess game, and things like this, and then the Housing Act just a little while back, and now all these people have voted for it, and nobody really fought Hartford over this because they didn't see what was coming, and now that the picture is getting more clear, now it's out of reach for most people to change.
To kind of tie it to something that I'll bring into this conversation here. Again, my crystal ball that I kind of mentioned on Thursday here. I think that one of the things that we can look at as a state and as taxpayers in the state is to look at the example that New Jersey is setting, where you now have farmland that is being gobbled up through even uses of eminent domain to provide for affordable housing. This, I think, looks like it is attempts to circumvent some of that eminent domain need by simply driving a farm to the point that they can't afford to do anything else except say, hey, this has been my farm for generations and now we're done.
Right. And unfortunately, that's what it looks like. And it's hard to say, well, no, they wouldn't do that. Because you look at everything that's happened in the past and how people have been driven away. And just look locally. There is a big push to get housing out into the Wyndhams, affordable housing, move it out, and gobble up that land that's not being used. The farms, you see them disappearing slowly. Either it's a solar panel going on them, or like you say, a new building project, a housing project.
A really interesting book, if you ever have a chance to read it, is called Without Reservation. and it talks a lot about the legal status of the Mashantucket Pequot tribe as it first developed from that bingo hall and the cigarette trailer to the massive casino it is right now. And that's really the last huge use of eminent domain that Connecticut had. It's a totally different circumstance, but I just want to throw in that if you're looking at Connecticut eminent domain case presentation, this is a great book, Without Reservations, written a number of years ago about that circumstance there. Another good book that I want to mention that I'm going to kind of tease for something on my show, I just began reading this one, and you and I talked about this Saturday afternoon there, George. This one's called The Psychology of Socialism.
Oh, yeah.
And it was actually written by an author in 1899, Gustave Le Bon, a French sociologist, psychologist, amateur physicist. And this one it draws some actually very good correlations between things that were happening in France at a time period, and then also a lot of discussion about crowd psychology that is absolutely applicable today to not only social media, but a lot of what we are seeing going on in society, even in the United States right now, and how emotion is driving a lot of what we're seeing with kind of protesting and crowd psychology and crowd management from the standpoint of what we're seeing with some of these protests that are happening around the country. So I just wanted to throw those couple things out there as teasers there for some of your listeners. If you're looking for some winter reading here, those are a couple books that I'm
sure they are
putting on my list.
I'm sure they are. So. This turned into an episode of Book Talk.
Yeah, Book Talk, unfiltered Book Talk.
There you go.
So
I will bring up something else, too, that I wanted to mention to you there. Did you hear that on Tuesday, the Department of Justice sued the state of Connecticut for voter election records?
I did, but I didn't know much about it.
This stems back
because Connecticut is non-compliant. So there was a request made, maybe a series of them, something like that. Did not request. I think Tong and the state just pretty much gave the feds the finger, for lack of hey, just to boil it down, this is what happened, and now there's a lawsuit about it.
So just another expense on the taxpayers.
Of course.
Yep.
Great. So, I mean, you talk about elections and voting, and, we had people, we had a caller earlier talking about they couldn't make the town meeting where the town votes, Another vote that came out that same night was something to do with we had a special meeting, a town hall for $37,000 that the voters had already voted yes for. But, people showed up at the meeting not understanding that this money would have to be bonded.
Okay.
Had to bond $37,000?
937.
Oh!
Which is still not a lot of money to bond when you consider the cost of bonding. But, this town is just, they're bond happy, especially the Board of Ed. So there were a lot of people that didn't understand the voting end of it. Mm-hmm. They showed up. I'm getting emails now. Was everybody in the room a resident? Were they, which, to be honest, I don't know. Because, I knew a few of them, just because from town. But you don't know. And things like that, and then you're told, oh, well, no, this is just a formality. No, it's not a formality. It is an actual vote. It had to go through the town. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't understand is it's not that people don't want to spend the money. It's how you're spending the money. Mm-hmm. Why borrow the money? Why incur that kind of cost on the bonding? Mm-hmm. There's got to be another way. And I think that councils and Board of Ed, when you get elected, a lot of people, they just don't understand the financial end of it. They get elected because they're the most popular person on their block or something like that, and then they make the decisions for the town, and then the town suffers. And we get put in a position that we're in now, where we're bonding for, rooftop units that shouldn't have failed, they should have been maintained, and a pickup truck, that
Really?
That's what this is for.
That's what that's for?
$937,000 for a pickup truck to replace a pickup truck that's got rust on it, and rooftop units at our newest school that have not been maintained. You know, and when the questions come up and people ask these questions of why weren't they maintained, what's going on with them, that's not what we're here for. We're here to vote yes or no on the money. So you never get it out. And I think that's what frustrates people a lot in local politics. I know it frustrates me because we want answers. Why are we spending the money? Are we going to have to do this again in 8-9 years?
Now, you also, as we had talked before the show, said that there really was also some kind of misunderstanding as to a lot of the fees that might have been incurred with this. Do you think that could have affected the vote at all if they understood fully what the actual cost of that bonding for that amount?
I do. I think, you know, when it's explained to these people, you know, oh, we're putting it out, it's going to be 30 years. And when people hear that, 30 years,
It's a long way away.
That's a long way away. So that reality don't set in, and the cost associated. And we have a new council member, Mr. Stephen Edelman, who understands bonding and this. And, you know, he really brought it to light and said, hey, do you realize what it costs to start this bond? What all the fees associated? And by the time you're done, you're doubling up on that $937,000. You know, so there's got to be other ways in putting stuff away. And going back to, you know, we're spending this money on these air conditioning units or these rooftop units, heating and air conditioning, but yet we've got no preventive maintenance programs or not sufficient. And then they talk about, well, we're going to build a new school. And whenever they build a new school, they never take into consideration the preventive maintenance, the upkeep, you know, all the things that go along with the everyday operations of these buildings. So I think that concerns a lot of people on the financial end. And, you know, since the last budget vote, all we hear is the school. They want to push it through again. You know, they're never happy with when there's a no vote, they keep doing it over and over and over again until they get their vote. And I'm getting a lot of people that are upset with that. And, you know, not only on the money end of it, I think a big problem in our school systems in this town, they say it's lack of parental involvement.
Yep.
Okay, which I agree. But let me ask you a question.
Involvement in
their students' activities and everything. Now, when I go to a production or something at the school with my daughter or any one of my kids, I always see them scanning the audience because they're looking for myself or my wife or family, people. And once they lock on you, you know, they're happy, they're doing their thing, they know you're there. And I see that with other children. Now, when you take away your local hometown school, neighborhood school, and you take it in a district like we have, and you move them out of the area, out of walking range,
Yes.
and you build this big school in Wyndham, how many of those parents and grandparents are going to be able to walk to that school and now watch their children in a play, in some sort of recital? So you're limiting them. And then, you know, when I questioned the Board of Ed chair on that, she said, well, we're going to hire vans to bring these people. We know that's not true. That's financially...
It's not feasible.
It's not feasible. You can't even transport what we have now. Oh, well, and then we get, well, not many walk. Well, if not many walk, how come we have all these crossing guards all over the town to cross these kids? Our neighborhood schools, they walk. Them parents are involved, and by taking that away, you're destroying that. I think we're going to make the problem even worse. We're turning our schools into like the box store. It's like when we got rid of our neighborhood businesses, the mom and pop shops, to go to the big box store. Well, we're getting rid of the mom and pop schools, the neighborhood schools, to go to the big box school. That's my opinion on it.
It's a very good analogy.
There's also a study that I just want to share with you that I read recently that absolutely supports what you're saying. And it showed that across this country, and they evaluated thousands of school districts, increased funding does not show any direct correlation to student improvements. Right? The single greatest factor that improves student success rates is family support.
Oh, and I agree with that 100%. I mean,
so that shows exactly what you're saying.
and I think that's where we've gone off. We're getting. I think we get away from the humanitarian the end of it, and we're going almost into the mechanicals of everything, and we're forgetting about that family unit.
That's correct. We've legislated. We've actually, as a society, I was going to say that we've begun. No, we've long since begun to legislate the nuclear family out of existence, whether it be incentivizing behavior through social welfare programs for there to be absent fathers, for financial gain, of course, but to encourage men to not be honorable, to or absent or whatever, and any title that you want to put it on there.
Right.
To look, let's put it this way. This is actually a really good. I forget what the name of it is, but there's a South Park episode that really beautifully illustrates this, where instead of churches, or instead of people going around trying to pray at people's doors, they would actually encourage them to come and spend time at their local DMV, and then you'd have groups of people praying, or I should say, worshiping politicians' portraits at the DMV, and I'll just wrap it up by saying, listen, I'm not a particularly religious man, but I will say this: when you absolutely when you removed and therefore admonished the presence of prayer and God in schools, it leaves a void, and it's being replaced by the state. And what is it? The warmth of collectivism.
Yes, there you go.
And you know what? That's
the psychology of socialism.
it's a real slippery slope. It seems to be very complicated, but it also seems to be everything points in one direction. Let's just put it that way.
Right. And I agree with you. I think one of the first things we need to do to get things back is put God back in our schools. Prayer, whatever religion you are, that's a big thing. But getting on to that, we've only got about a minute left. I'd just like to remind everybody there is a Republican caucus tomorrow at the VFW at 6:30 Valley. It's 6:30 Valley Street in Willimantic, Connecticut. That's at the VFW. That's open to all registered Republican electors. And the purpose is to choose our new Republican town committee. So we'd like to see you there, even if you don't want to be a part of it. Come on down, give your whatever kind of feedback you have, and we'd love to have you.
My caucus is going to be the same tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Scotland Community Hall at the fire department. Same purpose for electing Republicans to our Republican Town Committee. Go ahead, Mike, close us out for the hour.
And we'll see you back here next week at WILI 1400 AM and 95.3 FM. And God bless you.